खबर यह है कि सीधे चलते हैं अरुण जेटली वित्त मंत्री इस वक्त कुछ कह रहे हैं.
In a short and precise manner and restrict the question to one per individual. May I also request you to kindly switch off your mobiles and to keep them on silent mode. Over to the Honorable Minister for his opening remarks.
Well, thank you very much for all being here. Let me at the very outset express my gratitude to all the secretaries, the Chief Economic Advisor and of course my colleague, the Minister of State, Mr. Jayant Sinha, and also all the officials who worked with them in the last few months, scrutinizing various suggestions which were coming and then finalizing all the budget proposals. It was a challenging task. I don't want to repeat what already has been said in the budget statement in the morning, but I can tell you that there's a particular set of circumstances, both very favorable and very challenging at the same time, that we were working under. The first challenge, of course, was that there is a redefined architecture of the fiscal relationship between the centre and the states. And obviously the resources, both in absolute terms and percentage terms, available to the centre have gone down. We do not regret it. In fact, we are happy that this has happened. It was long overdue. The 14th Finance Commission needs to be complimented for that. And being a government that was committed to cooperative federalism, we have gladly accepted that recommendation. And therefore, a very large part of the central revenue, we calculate it is about 47%. And if you take the national revenue of the centre and the states together, it's about 62% that goes to the states. Now, this will be money which will be spent on the ground. This also means that states are equal co-partners, and their level of responsibility in enhancing national growth also increases. I'm sure all states will take it in the right spirit and contribute in this task of nation building. So we were first constrained by the fact that the resource available to us had declined. I think the second situation was that the world was enthusiastically looking at us. And when I speak of the world, predominantly both domestic and international investors. And therefore, notwithstanding that constraint, we had to carry on the track on which this government has functioned in the last 9 months. And there are a large number of unfinished tasks that we have to fill up, and we had to walk on a road which we have laid down for ourselves. And that obviously meant working for higher growth rates within limits of fiscal prudence. And therefore, of course, we do anticipate that our growth rates will be reasonably better than what they were this year. We anticipate, as has been pointed out in the economic survey, between 8 and 8.5. We had a choice to make. And the choice was that if we stuck to the pre-established fiscal deficit target of 3.6, which is prior to the 14th Finance Commission, we'd really have to cut down a very large part of the public spending. Neither could we abandon fiscal prudence. So we found the right balance in wanting to reach the 3% target in 3 years instead of 2 years. And we stuck to that road. This will obviously give us, in each of the 3 years, a reasonable amount of flexibility and a resource at our disposal, which would predominantly go to public spending. The public spending on infrastructure, which is the first key highlight, we have increased notwithstanding the squeezing of the fiscal space. We've added and decided to explore other avenues of infrastructure long-term spending in terms of tax-free bonds, in terms of a fund being created where centre also contributes. Maybe the PSUs may also contribute to that. We'll find funds for that purpose, and the large body of investors also contributes, both from domestically and predominantly internationally. We then had to concentrate on manufacturing, correcting some of the inverted duty structures and areas where rebate could be given, which were job-creating areas. Obviously, the task of the national resource going to the weaker sections and the more vulnerable sections was very important. So we maintained or enhanced the spending as far as those sectors were concerned. We also brought a paradigm shift in the thinking to the extent that you need to introduce ideas of social security within the system. So both for the weaker sections, keeping the principles of equity in mind, we have come out with certain ideas. With regard to the eastern region, there was a special place in our policy. And as far as the taxpayers are concerned, we have prioritized what our ideas were. We want more money in the hands of the taxpayer. We wanted to incentivize them to save for their own future. And those savings in turn pushes up the domestic savings rate and are useful for the country as a whole. And those who evade the law, we had a tough message for them. Now, these are amongst the various highlights, and I'm sure this will balance growth, fiscal prudence, equity, as also create confidence in the minds of the investors. Under the circumstances when our space was to a large extent squeezed, there were certain structural reforms in terms of ideas, in terms of new legislations which we have proposed. These will be in addition to what's already pending in Parliament, and I'm quite sure that the next few sessions of Parliament on economic legislations, we'll have our hands full. That's all I had to say. If there are any queries you have to me or to any of my colleagues.
Yeah. Okay, let's start with this gentleman here. Yeah.
Roadmap, now you're going to achieve 3% by 2017-18. Justifying that you're going to increase the capital spending, but the big elephant in the room is the Reserve Bank of India. You think they're going to support this idea of yours and support you in enhancing growth by cutting rates anytime soon now?
Well, I think you need to have a little patience. You'll get the answer to your question.
Yeah, this lady here, please.
Mr. Jaitley, Smita Sharma from TV Today Network. Given that increasingly there are more states which are ruled by the BJP, would that help you in plugging leakages when you talk of subsidies? How do you, because you're continuing with social spendings, you're continuing with subsidies, how do you really look at plugging in those leakages? And secondly, the one rank, one pension was expected to be implemented. There was a sense that the Ministry of Defence had given to army personnel. There seemed to be no mention of this in your budget.
You see, as far as leakages are concerned, it is not a party issue. I don't think there is any political party in India which stands up and says that leakages in subsidies must continue. Therefore, it's not an issue of a BJP government or a non-BJP government. At the moment, oil and diesel having been linked to the market, our next strategy in the subsidies is twofold. We are concentrating on LPG